Cyclone Nation, what better way to kick off the 2025 college football season than cheering on your Cyclones in the Aer Lingus College Football Classic in Dublin, Ireland? Whether it's a quick trip to Dublin for the game, a multi-city adventure throughout the Irish countryside, or premium game day hospitality, there is a package for you. Visit cyclones2ireland.com for information on official travel and hospitality packages. That's Cyclones, the number 2, Ireland.com.
Welcome in, everyone. This is, what's the name of the show again? You're so out of practice with this.
Kicking It.
Kicking It. And I'm Grant Mahoney. I'm here with
Bill Buckner.
Jeff Woody here with Grant Mahoney. Aiden Wyatt is producing. We are brought to you as always by Kelderman Manufacturing, kelderman.com. Aiden, are we past planting season? Or are we right in it?
Oh.
Haven't started yet.
Yeah.
Nice.
Ground's still frozen.
I didn't know. It was 85 3 days ago. It snowed yesterday.
Yeah, well, it snowed one day ago. So.
Yeah, so we're all over the place. Kelderman.com. So if you need anything, if you're listening to this and you're getting ready to plant and you need something's broken, you need it fixed, Kelderman.com. Custom manufacturing, laser engraving. Thank you to Jeff Kelderman for, again, putting up with us now for going on a year and a half. We're going into this will be our third football season, right?
Yeesh.
Wow. Got a lot of off season to go to. So we're actually going to...
Who knew a couple dingbats would be able to hang around this long?
Hey, you know who our dinguses? Those that have already booked through cyclones2ireland.com. The Aer Lingus College Football Classic.
That's correct.
Cyclones, the number 2, Ireland.com. It's week 0. That's going to be an interesting... That's the next time you're going to see a major... One of the top 4 popular sports for Iowa State. The next participation you're going to see on the football pitch is in Ireland. There's no basketball until then. There's no football until then.
No spring game.
There's no spring game. Well, there's a lot to look forward to. Cyclones2ireland.com. Don't be a dingus. Book with Aer Lingus. So we're going to go over, because it's officially the off season. The men's and women's teams are both done. Wrestling nationals were a few weeks ago. Football has been done, obviously, for a while. So kind of doing a little bit of a post-mortem on the seasons. And this is no offense to like the soccer and softball teams and things that are still ongoing. It's not something that I have paid attention to be knowledgeable enough to have a conversation with. They're still very important. But with football, men's and women's basketball, and if we get to the conversation with wrestling, we can. But it's really kind of going into the season, we had really high expectations. And then sort of how did the team meet them and what the perception is, 3 years from now, when we look back at it, what are we going to feel? Sort of snap reactions there. And then going into the offseason, what are the main questions that each of those teams is going to have to answer? So before we get to all that,
how's your bracket doing?
I was going to say, are you happy or disappointed with chalk all the way through in the brackets?
Well, yes and no. I'm happy, but I'm not happy. I'm happy because those 4 are... They are and have been the clear best 4 teams in the country. So I am happy because I think we're going to see 2 great games in the Final Four and then a great championship game. I will say I picked Florida in a couple of mine, but I think the winner of the Duke-Houston, which I think will be Houston.
That's going to be a rock fight, man.
Yes, will win it all. Because I think Janiah Broome just got hurt again.
That's what Aiden pulled it up on the screen.
Broome will play, by the way.
He ain't going to be effective, though.
He said he's going to play.
Kind of got hurt, though. He should. I mean, he's
a senior, and this is a Final Four. Like, what else are you going to do? Rest for 2 days later for the national title if you can get through Florida because Florida and Auburn already played like 2 weeks ago, and Florida just kicked the ever-living shit out of Auburn.
But it's a new time.
It is. For those that are interested, how is the mascot bracket doing? Honestly, not that bad.
Well, we got a giant ice cube next
Top
to the
20 million.
Hey,
21 million.
20.3 million. However, both of the national title contenders in the mascot fights bracket still alive. Florida versus Duke. The mascot fights found its way there. You want to read through the Elite Eight just as a recap of what that is?
The Final Four is correct.
Final Four is exactly correct?
It's all 1 seeds.
We didn't get that right.
We didn't get that right. Houston didn't make it all the way there.
Am I reading this wrong?
I think you are, Aiden.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I was. My bad. What did you want me to read?
Just who our Elite Eight was.
No, That is right.
Did we have Houston make it all the way?
We had all 4.
We had Houston make it. We correctly picked the Final Four.
Yeah.
No shit.
Because we had Houston beating UCLA, Duke beating
No,
Alabama.
because we had Iowa State beating.
Yeah, Iowa State was in.
Sorry, this is confusing to look at.
Oh, you're right. We had Florida and Duke. We had UCLA beating Clemson, Iowa State beating UC San Diego.
Tritons. It's
So
weird.
we had
mythical.
3 out of 4.
2.
2 out of 4.
2 out of 4. Sorry.
But still, one on either side of the bracket, you can still have the national title be decided by mascot fights. What's funny is that, like, it's good a way of choosing as any.
Yeah.
Not too bad.
You know what? I did a coin flip bracket too, and that's doing better than like what I wanted to happen, like what I thought was going to happen. So it's like, I mean, it's really kind of a crapshoot at times.
Yeah,
I did see that there was one perfect bracket until the Michigan State Auburn game, and that person picked Michigan State.
That sucks.
Crazy though.
That sucks.
I saw someone had a perfect bracket going into the
Michigan
Elite
State.
8 or something.
Oh.
And they didn't pick any of the other games. They just stopped at the Elite 8.
Oh.
Like 16 or whatever it
It's
was.
like someone taking a dump and then they finished up, forgot to finish.
Jeff, get out of the bathroom.
It's just sitting there. Never hit submit. It auto submitted for him. Well, there you missed out on however many $1 million it is to get a perfect
they picked
bracket.
every game correctly that they actually picked, but
No, that's wild.
tough luck.
The maximum available for our mascot fights bracket would put it, I think, in the top good percentage. So like I did several as far as total brackets. Some are totally arbitrary, and I usually do a chalk bracket just to kind of see how it compares. This is generally true, and people are going to completely forget about this for next year because it's still like 340 days away. When you can fill out your bracket, if you want to win your office pool, chalk all the way through. You will almost guaranteed do better than anybody else. It's just chalk all the way through. And this year, you're not likely to get a whole bunch of 1 seeds every time, but like, let's say Michigan State upset Auburn. That's a 1-1-1-2.
Yeah.
Chalk.
Yeah.
When in doubt, chalk's a better bet.
Especially now with the NIL, and there are less and less, if you're a stud on UC San Diego, you're gonna be a stud in the next year. You're gonna
go
jump
to
ship-
Kansas or wherever.
Yeah. So there are obviously, upsets, but you're gonna see less and less. I've got a feeling going forward.
But I do a few gut bracket, which is like this first look at it, no research at all. 63rd percentile, 9.5 million. I have 1490 left available on the ESPN, which is, I think the only one that I had wrong was St. John's instead of Florida. I had the other 3 right.
You guys are crazy. I'm a 1 bracket man.
And then the other ones, it's chaos. So it's the gut one. It's the only one you actually think about. Then mascot fights, which, well, that I feel like that one takes a lot more thought. Is the mascot fights
That's the
bracket?
most that I've ever put in any bracket ever.
Yeah, the mascot fights. That's a lot of thought. Then one is a reasonable want bracket where like I'm not going to pick any 16s over 1s, and I'm not going to take Wofford to the Final Four. And then there's a want completely unreasonable chaos bracket where Wofford is finding its way to the Final Four. They're a 15 seed. I just love the Terriers. It's a great mascot.
It's a little silly.
Then other ones which have done better or worse in different years, whichever logo is bluer and whichever logo is redder. And I just literally look at the logo and which one's bluer, which one's redder. There have been several years where that is my most accurate bracket because if you think about it, Kentucky, Duke, Kansas, UCLA, those are all teams that are going to be Auburn. They're going to be like,
What do you title that one? Like
Just bluer.
Crips First Bloods, or
that's I stay away from that lifestyle.
yeah. Well,
Life I led, and I'm not proud of it, right?
I don't see any gang signs from you, Jeff.
That's really it. And so far,
I would say that for anybody who like wrote down any kind of suggestions that I gave in the last podcast, like if you wrote down a piece of paper, burn that paper. Like next year when we do this, burn it.
not good.
Yeah. I would say if you want to win a lot of money, listen to what I say and then do the opposite.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, do that.
Because I don't know why I thought, I'd have a good bracket. I don't, never have. I just thought I'm really doing some like in-depth research, talking, to these experts. Although I will say the teams that are hot and healthy and the ones that are old, Auburn's old, except for Duke. They're Houston has lost 1 game since Feast Week, and it was an overtime game versus Texas Tech,
Yeah, pretty damn good.
who was in the Elite Eight.
And was 2 free throws and 2 3-pointers away from winning that game anyway.
Yes.
But while we're talking about basketball, let's get to Iowa State because I think that's kind of where most people's brains are. We haven't actually had the chance to be on air since the game. So overarching theme going into the year. Your statement was the Final Four is the floor, and obviously did not make that. When we look back 3 years from now, what are we going to look back and think about this Iowa State team?
Man, I think what could have been, this team was really, really special. I was talking to a buddy and I was like, man, the year in football was supposed to be really, really special. And of course we play, no disrespect to linebackers, but we're playing, walk-ons and guys you never heard of before. So this was the year, and it still was a really special year. It could have been even more special with football. For basketball, kind of same thing. Taman broke his thumb earlier in the year, played with a quote broken thumb. I'm not saying it wasn't broken, but I think he left it wrapped because he's a little superstitious and was kind of focusing more on his shooting and
just a little stitious.
Yeah,
not superstitious, just a little stitious.
That Joshua Jefferson he came into the season coming off an injury, so I think next year he'll be even better. Now he'll have a full off season to work with the team. He was still fantastic, and he will be fantastic next year. The injury with Milan right when the team was cooking. Obviously the injury with Keyshawn, so the team just they were so injury plagued, and they were just starting to find their groove early in the season, and then the injury started to hit, and then when everyone came back healthy, they weren't really a cohesive unit playing together all at the same
until the Big 12 tournament.
Yeah,
and then Taman gets hurt again.
Yeah, and then Taman he re-aggravated it, in the game versus Ole Miss as well too early. So
yeah, he was. It was. I tried.
Dude's a warrior, though.
Yeah, and he was out there, and it was. Sort of like Janai Broom. Like when you watched Janai Broom the other night, him being out there is beneficial from an attitude standpoint. He ain't doing much. Once Broom got hurt, because I think they had scored in the Auburn Michigan State game. I think there's a 7 minute of game clock period where he was back in the locker room. I think they scored 2 points in those 7 minutes. They played good defense, but they scored 2 points. He comes back out, hits a three. He's playing on one arm. His right arm, he hyperextended that elbow. He probably couldn't barely use it, but he shoots left-handed. Doesn't really matter. Hit one shot. Kind of the energy is that was Taman, but his was a groin.
Janai Broom's a little better than Taman, a little more impactful.
Sure. And as a big guy, as long as you get down there, you're shooting closer range versus Taman's game is ball pressure defense. That's where he is. He is one of the best in the country at ball pressure defense. You can't react because you have a groin injury.
Try going laterally with a groin injury.
You're guessing because it's attached to your hip. You can't take your hip where you want to go. And so the way that I've tried to describe it to people, and again, this is a couple weeks after Iowa State being done, but the way I tried to describe it to people, so without Keyshawn, period, you're without one of your starting corners on defense. But in basketball, you play offense and defense. And so you're without your starting corner and your starting running back. So you're on a second string running back and a second string corner. Well, and then Taman gets hurt. Well, now you're without your other starting corner, and that dude's an all-pro, you're better corner. So you're out your starter and your both of your starting corners, and Taman being your true point guard, you're out your quarterback. Yeah. So in your backup running back, quarterback, and both starting corners, and you're a team that plays press man. That's the type of situation that Iowa State was in, and they still made a fight of it. And it took Ole Miss shooting,
oh my God,
an astronomically high number.
They had 4 or 5 games all year up to that point where they made 11 or more threes,
and they made 13, right? 11 or 13.
They made 11.
But either way, that was...
And then, of course, they go ice cold the next game.
Right. It's just because stats. And
right. I'm like, oh, my God. In the first half, there's no way these guys can keep it up. I'm sure as shit
they did. And I think the thing that made it harder, too, when you look at what Iowa State's defense is based on, it's that ball pressure, that everything is uncomfortable from the start. That, use the football example again. It's press man. Why is press man effective? It's because the timing that your quarterback and your receiver have, they practice it all the time. It's that I can at least get to the top of my route, and then my wide receiver can win if the defensive back is not playing press man and it's off. People that are really good at press man, the Deion Sanderses of the world, the Champ Baileys of the world, that are up in your jockstrap and you can't release, you can't get to your spot, then the quarterback has to wait and they have to hope that you get open or completely come off that option entirely. Well, that took when you're out those two metaphorical corners, you can't play press man anymore. You're playing off zone. Well, your team doesn't know how to do that. That's not a thing that they're built to do. So now all the entry passes were easy because Taman couldn't be up in their grill, and Cade Kelderman when he would foul, and when he wasn't quite quick enough to keep up with everybody. So he's either too tight and getting getting in foul trouble, or too far back and getting blown by. So you have nobody that can deny the ball or cause the start of the play to be uncomfortable. So everything is scramble mode all the time.
I think for me this season, I think I've said already that this season is what could have been. You saw Iowa State playing really, really well, like in, really up until conference play. And they're playing really well offensively, really balanced ball. And then what really, really annoyed me was that TJ's MO has been defense, and they played okay defense for most of the season. The game versus Houston, though, that was the defense that we're used to. I'm like, what? You can play this defense every time. Why aren't you? So I'm like, man, it's frustrating for me that they looked so good early in the season, played that really good defense versus Houston. A lot of teams, were good to start the year, and they got better as they went on. And I feel like Iowa State didn't. I feel like they just didn't have the chance to.
Yeah, and that was, I think it fell apart with injuries. And
go ahead. One thing I want to say about Janiah Broome, but you go ahead.
I was going to say about when you look back at this, and this we can kind of sort of pivot into the what are the questions going forward, is it feels to me like this is, I don't like the every setback is a comeback. I think that's a little bit of a corny thing. But I also do feel like this is a thing that I repeat to myself in situations when I don't succeed at whatever thing is you either win or you learn, you never lose. And it feels like this is one of those, what are you going to do from this failure point? Because I would say, if you ask anybody in the basketball program, they would say that the end of the season's result was a failure. The season itself wasn't, but the goals they had, they did not reach them. So by considering that a missing of your goal, what are you going to learn from it going forward? And to me, it feels like this is the first time that a TJ team has underachieved, because the rest
they were number 2 at one point.
Right. And the rest of the teams have overachieved, and now everyone's patting you on the back. You're so good. This is the first year that TJ and every broadcast go, that Otzelberger guy is really good, and that staff, and everyone's getting pats on the back. And now you've underachieved. What do you do with it? That to me, it's like not necessarily the biggest question, but that is sort of when I look back 2 or 3 years from now, from what I know about the coaching staff and the personality of that program, this feels less like the start of a downward trend and more of the pullback of a slingshot to kind of shoot it back forward, because it doesn't seem like they're the type to take this lying down.
I think that fans are becoming spoiled, because
you think
when we were in school, Jeff, it was cool to make it to the tournament. It was great to go to a bowl game. Campbell says bullshit programs care about 6 and 6. The expectation now is to get to the Big 12. The expectation to get the Big 12 championship. And now they've won 11 games. It's to repeat that success. Mm-hmm. With basketball, you've been to the Sweet 16 now 2 of TJ's 4 years. And
you've won a first round game 3 of the 4.
That's the floor. The floor should be, okay, now let's take the next step. So I like what you said, though. When you said you win or you learn from it. I think the next time someone calls me a loser, I'm going to say, I'm not a loser, I'm a learner.
I'm so good at learning.
Don't you dare call me a loser, I'm a learner.
I learn all the time.
One thing I want to say about Janiah Broome before we kind of pivot to the next thing is, he's got some interesting tattoos. I saw him, I'm not trying to dog on the guy. I saw him post game when his arm was just hanging. He has on his shin, Nightmare on Broome Street. I get the reference, but I don't think Broome and Elm, I don't really fit. But also it's on like his shin. Do you have any tattoos?
No.
I've got one, and
that would hurt so bad.
Yes, directly on your shin, because there's no meat.
That's just bone.
One that really hurt, and 2, he's got like behind one of his ears, he has loser, and the S is red. I think it says loser. I think it's just a red S. I'm like, well,
interesting choice.
Yeah, he's not a loser though. He's a learner.
He's a learner. I mean, you can dog it all you want.
It's just interesting.
Yeah, you can. When you fail to achieve a goal, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to be sad and take your ball and go home? Or are you going to say, why did I not do that? And then fix it and go get it the next time that you actually have a bite at the apple. And I think the big questions going into the men's basketball offseason is when doing a postmortem on the season, why did 2 or 3 injuries throw off the whole thing?
Yeah, I think that
not to use Janiah Broome again and not to cut you off, but like Janiah Broome is out for like 2 or 3 weeks, Auburn didn't lose in that entire time. Now, granted, it's a deeper roster.
That's what I was going to say.
But at the same time, you lose who could be, if I don't know when the awards are, you might have already won it, but like you lose potentially the player of the year and you lose nothing.
I think that TJ's recruiting philosophy is changing, that we saw some of the freshmen enter the transfer portal that they didn't contribute. And I think TJ thought maybe they're going to. The guys he has coming in next year, there's a dude from Germany who is playing in the German professional league. He's like 20. He's going to be, quote, a freshman. I think technically he'll be classified as a sophomore. He's a dog. He's like 6'9". He's got good handles. I think he'll play. There's another guy, French kid that plays at Brewster, where Melvin Edgem came from.
In Canada, yeah?
Last name's, no, this is in New Hampshire.
Because Mel's Canadian.
Toure, T-O-U-R-E. I'm not sure how to pronounce that.
Toure?
Yeah, Toure, yeah. However, I think he's a point guard. He looks really good too, but I think he has some like international experience too, which I think is kind of what they were leaning on and kind of expecting from Noyes, that it just didn't pan out, which is fine. Xavier Mitchell, and Aiden's got to pull up here. Xavier Mitchell just won Wisconsin's
Mr. Basketball. He's from Tyrese's high school, Tyrese Halliburton's. And then Jamarian Bateman is one of the elite shooters in the class. So I would not be surprised if we see playing time from 3 of the 4, and I don't know anything. I'm not saying this is going to happen. I would not be surprised if we see playing time from 3 of the 4 freshmen. And then going down and looking at the transfers, so far they've gotten... And I'm sure people are familiar with this because this is our first time on the mic since, again, most of the portal is opened. From the guys that contributed, who's back are Taman, Heisey, Milan, Joshua Jefferson, of the guys that, for the most part, contributed throughout the year.
Kelderman, but no disrespect to him, I'm not sure I see him playing much going forward.
Right. And then the guys who did contribute that graduated were Kurt, Keyshawn, Brandt, and then the guys who transferred are really, it's Deshaun was the only one that contributed substantially that's transferring out. And then a lot of your bench guys like Demarion,
Noyes, JT, and
those
Cade
guys
Fisher
transferred out. So really what you're losing, you have no centers right now.
And that's what I was going to say, is that they kept the nucleus of, at the end of the year, I mean, those were 4 of the 5 starters.
Right.
And that they kept the nucleus. And Heisey might have been Iowa State's first or second best. He was shot like 60% in the last 9 weeks.
Yeah,
from
I'm
3.
excited to see what he can do, knowing that he's got to be more of a scorer going into this next season, because I think a lot of what they're missing. So
he was missing confidence. He was missing
now he's got it, and now he's going to go in this offseason being like, you're a dude. You're going to be our 2 or 3, and you're going to be on the floor for 30 minutes a game. Go be a dog. And I think that's sort of a fun thing for him. But another thing that when you look at sort of this, the big questions going in is, how do you not let injuries derail your season? Because they will happen. Mm-hmm. Basketball is a game. You're jumping a billion times. You're running 7 miles a game.
And Iowa State plays a physical
and they play
brand.
A physical brand of basketball. Injuries will happen.
Yeah.
So how can you build?
Especially that Taman, God damn it.
Stay on the field, man, or stay on the court. But like, how do you keep everybody upright, healthy? And that's sort of a work with the strength program, work with the athletic training. But also when those injuries happen, how do you build kind of redundancy in roles? How do you, like, the teams the team that I look at is sort of a BYU. Now, granted, it's a very different style, but they played 11 guys. And I know that it's a different...
They're going to be freaking good next year too. They got the number 1 guy coming in.
Yeah, and it's a different... They got a lot of money.
Give him $7 million.
A lot of money,
Jeff.
Better be worth it. That's
God.
A lot of pressure. But you look at a team like BYU, and again, they play much more up-tempo. They do play good defense, but it's a different style. But I think the thing that 11 players or more than 7 gets you is that if you're only playing 7 or 8 guys and you have 2 or 3 get hurt, then that means you're having to pull from guys that either don't have experience or don't have the reps with the starters to actually give that a shot, versus you play 8, 9, 10, where if we just do the math of there's 4 main contributors, again, removing Kelderman from that equation, there's 4 main contributors that you can expect minimally to get 20 minutes a game of, Jefferson, Milan, Heisey, Taman. Those 4, minimally 20 minutes a game. Depending on how you parse it up, who else plays? You've got 4 freshmen that are coming in. Of those, if we say 3 are going to play at least, depending on, again, health, whatever contribution, and then you're getting 3 to some, maybe even 5 transfers, depending on how it ends up. You go from 4 plus 4 freshmen, say 3 are going to play. There's 7 plus 4 transfers. Let's say another 2 or 3 are going to play. That's 9 or 10.
Yep.
I think that when you look at the off season, and I think that's what Campbell does really well. And I think TJ is probably going to talk to Campbell, like, professional to professional, of how do you go about changing your things? And like, what are we doing poorly? And I don't want to say poorly in the sense of like, it's bad, as in, if we have all A's and one C plus, that's not an F, but it's still a C plus and we need it at an A. How do we find our C pluses and fix those without tweaking anything else that's an A? And that to me feels like depth and role redundancy are things that could be fixed and addressed in this offseason with the transfer portal, with minutes, with guys they're recruiting, with guys they're trying to bring from the portal. That to me feels like the main question is, what can you do to fix when injuries happen to not let it fall off the rails?
I think, comparing football and basketball, obviously two very different sports. Football, you can rotate in a true safety who just backpedals and watches and doesn't get, the ball thrown to him. You can do it with a receiver. You can block, you can run around and doesn't get the ball thrown to him. Whereas basketball, there's only 5 guys in the court. So I think what I love about Campbell and their staff, what they do is they really rotate in a lot of young guys and get them experience, especially now with the transfer portal. A guy could leave whenever they want. So they might get 1 or 2 years out of them. I think they're not really worried too much about a red shirt or burning the red shirt. Whereas basketball, I think TJ's thing was, we've got so many new pieces. Let's get them in rotation and play, the 6 and 7 guy with some of the starters and kind of get him in there. My philosophy, and obviously I'm not a basketball coach, and thank God for that. I would like to have seen, Noya, get Noya in there, get him some more reps. Next year, get these freshmen in there when you're playing UW Milwaukee or whoever, and you're up 40. I understand that for the rankings, you want to just beat the shit out of these teams. But I think at the end of the day, what's more important is having guys who have experience. So then when injuries do happen, they're not quite a deer in the headlights out there. Like Kelderman didn't really get a whole lot of experience until like middle of the season. And had he played some, versus UW Milwaukee, he probably maybe could have done a little bit better. He didn't do bad. I thought he was a dog out there. But I guess what I'm saying is, I would personally like what BYU did, how they played 11 guys. I would like to see Iowa State have 9, 10, 11 guys, and maybe 8, 9, 10 don't play more than 8 minutes a game. But I would like to see them be a little deeper, because that way early in the season, you're getting these young guys to play some. And yes, you may not be able to use that time to gel, but you're also using that time where Taman can't be reckless against UW Milwaukee and potentially hurt himself. And that's where I'm at, is I would rather have depth pieces and guys experience than to really use those 8 minutes to gel more.
Yeah, and I think I would be interested to hear the counter argument for that, because I'm in the same camp that you are, but obviously TJ is not the only coach that tends to not operate in that way. And I'd love to hear the counter argument for that, because there's got to be a reason, and
like why not? You're up 40. Why not put in?
Right. And maybe it is that they've tried in the past and it didn't work. And there's, when you get other guys in, then it throws the rotation off, and these guys, and you're, bad practice is worse than no practice and whatever.
Let's get him on. Let's tech TJ. Let's get TJ on next week.
Okay. Got it. Aiden's shaking his head. That's a confirmation.
All right.
But I think from the standpoint of now, if we look at, ideally you play 8, 9, 10, 11, or 11 guys. 11 is probably unrealistic, but let's say 9 or 10 guys who have reasonable expectations of being on the floor for anywhere between 5 and 20 minutes, or your starters, or your, the Tamans, the Joshua Jeffersons, the Milans that are going to be on the floor for 30. What is the rest of them? But now I think one thing that, to state the case again without really a counterpoint to that, is the other thing that does is it allows for you to flex in and out of game styles a little bit better. Because one thing that Iowa State ran into the trouble of, and again, this is when you're playing without 2 point guards, like you have no one that is a true point guard against Ole Miss. Ole Miss wanted to play physical shoot the 3 style game. It's a different style game than Iowa State had played in previous matchups. They couldn't match up with it, versus Lipscomb wanted to just play out in the perimeter. They wanted to shoot. Iowa State could get up in and be more physical. Well, Ole Miss wanted to be physical and then drive and kick. Well, what if Heisey's good at that, but the kid from Germany's not? And well, maybe he was planning on playing that, but that's the style game it is. You've got 9 pieces that you can reassemble to match the game flow. And I think that's why BYU got so damn hot throughout the back half of the year, is they could play any game. And it took it took Alabama breaking a 30-year or 35-year-old shooting
Oh
record.
my God.
In order for
That was
them,
incredible.
it was incredible. And as a stats nerd, it pissed me off because like statistically, if you assume, so the record that they shot 20, they made 24 threes in a game. Now, granted, was the defense perfect? No, but
They shot like
they
50.
shot 51 threes and they made 24 of them. And the previous record
Grinnell.
was in 1990. I think it was Loyola made 21. So that record stood for 35 years. And not only did they break it, they obliterated it by an additional 3 threes. What did they do the next round against Duke?
Exactly.
They made 28%. Like statistically.
Exactly.
And so, but you bring it back to BYU. It took that to knock BYU out of the tournament, is a record that they had to smash.
Which is funny because then it took that to knock Iowa State out of the Big 12 tournament from BYU, who then lost to Houston. Obviously,
Right.
Houston's
Again,
good
that's
defense.
the percentages
Yeah.
flipped around. So like that, I think. So now let's take the 8, 9, 10. Let's assume that that's the case. I think Iowa State, to get back to that defensive first thing, what do you expect? Because you guys are more, and Aiden, you can kind of chime in on this too, because I'm not super versed in the transfer portal, so I can play the role of a dumb fan in this. What does it look like based on what TJ is bringing in that the offense and defensive setups are going to look like? Because it's not Deshaun Jackson and Brant Chatfield and whatever. What do you think the roster construction is going to be like based on who they're bringing in?
Yeah, I think, we just looking at the transfers here we have committed. So we've got Blake Buchanan, who's from Virginia. And
I will say, preface this, when we talk about commitments and stuff,
verbal.
I imagine, I'm just putting the caveat on this. Nothing's done until it's done. And even if it's a verbal commitment, it might change. So we're talking in probablys and I think so's. And there's varying degrees of probablys and I think so. So just don't take this as gospel, but we're just going to have the conversation as opposed to saying, well, we think. We're just going to speak in certainties for the next little bit. But there is always a small caveat on each one of these. So anyway, go ahead.
So, and thinking of, the guys that Iowa State's gotten from Virginia, Shayok, Buchanan, there's one more that I think Iowa State's going to get in this class as well too. I'm going to reach out to Tony Bennett, see if he wants to join us.
Interesting. Yeah. Right? Lots of guys.
He'd be a good one to get on. I think him and, I could be wrong, I think him and TJ are friends-ish.
Well,
Yeah, there's a reason TJ went after 2 Virginia guys.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'll read
2 Tony Bennett guys, I believe, was kind of, I think Tony Bennett is still kind of involved with Virginia behind the scenes a little bit, so he knows these guys pretty well.
And it's a culture fit.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to be tough to play at Iowa State.
Yeah. So I think with Blake Buchanan, he averaged like 5 and 5, which that's not going to blow you away. He's a sophomore. He was a 4-star high school guy. He only played 2 years. He started 22 games for Virginia. So he's as a starter in the ACC. Granted, the ACC was down, but still he's a starter at ACC. He's a 4-star transfer, which like I said, he only averaged 5 and 5. But again, and I know Limbs and Bloom talk about this, Virginia plays such a slow pace that those numbers are low. Like had he played at Iowa State, he could average 8 and 8.
Yeah.
That's his numbers are down. He is a little bit more of a project, and I think Williams has mentioned this too. Bigs get better as they go on in their career. It's hard for a young big to play and be really productive.
Like an offensive lineman.
Yes. And
that's why Brendan Black is so amazing that he played as a freshman.
Yeah. So Blake Buchanan is the number 5, I believe, center transfer in the portal. So he's legit. And Iowa State was looking at number 4 too, and I'm not sure what's going to go on there. But Blake Buchanan, right now I think he's probably penciled to be the starter. So give him a chance. He is a hard-nosed working dude. Obviously, he's a Tony Bennett guy, Tony Bennett disciple. Eric Mulder, the dude's from Pella Christian, so he's from Iowa. He grew up an Iowa fan, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yep. So did I.
Yep.
But he is cut from the same cloth as Bob Jones.
Bob Jones?
And Brant Chatfield. And then
he's a Bob Jones guy?
Oh, yeah.
He's going to shove somebody in a locker?
He was the top most efficient.
Shot 74% from the floor, right?
Yes. And he finishes everything on the hoop. I mean, he's the kind of guy that you want in there when you're going against Hunter Dickinson, because he's going to be pulling the shorts down and getting
not to bring up BYU again. What is it? Who's their 6'6" guy who's just a
Kita Kemba?
No, that's the dude. He's a volleyball player. Is it Fu something?
Oh yeah, Torre.
Yeah, Fu Torre.
Yeah,
whatever. Right. That he's not big, but aggressive
bruiser.
Gonna get 6 offensive rebounds a game. Gonna score 11, and you go, how does he have 11 points? That style game.
Yep. Yeah. So he's a really heady guy. Comes from Purdue Fort Wayne. So there's not really much on him. Obviously, you can see here that there's a picture for Fort Wayne. But he's going to be a nice depth piece. I think he's going to come in off the bench and kind of give you that Bob Jones, Brant Chatfield type of energy, type of spark where
Play 12 minutes, get 3 fouls. That's okay.
But pick up 6 rebounds.
Yeah.
Yep. Get a couple steals. Mason Williams, people are comparing him to Jiggy. When I watch this film, he looks more like a DeAndre Kane to me.
Ooh.
Yeah,
I could deal with the DeAndre Kane.
He's not quite
one of my favorite Iowa State players.
He's not quite as heavy, but he's aggressive to the cup in the same sense as DeAndre, and he's a good 3-point shooter. Now, I'm not sure we should expect a ton out of him next year. I think he might be a little bit of a project as well too, but he has the potential to be really good. He's a baller.
So then, now to answer the question is, what is that? Putting all that together with the pieces that are there.
There's also one more piece that I want to add in that I think.
Are you announcing that you're going to come back for your last year of eligibility to play basketball?
I text Bloom.
He said no.
I text Bloom, and I'm sure this made his day because it was opening day of portal season. I texted him. I said, "What's the going rate for a 6'1" 100?" I'll read it to you. So I texted Bloom at 9:30 in the morning, the day the portal opened, and I said,
his phone's not blowing up already,
right?" So I said, "What's the going rate for a 6', 190-pound guard who won a state championship my junior year, crushed on the JV squad, never passed up the opportunity to launch a 3 and was gritty on D? I've got a COVID year left." He didn't respond for quite a while, and so I responded, "Just messing with you. I know today is going to be a crazy day. I don't mean to take away from things that actually matter." And he just ha-ha'd it. And he said, "I appreciate you." So he was obviously pretty busy.
I think it's funny that you started with like kind of a serious message, and then you put in my junior year.
Yeah, it's not hypothetical. It's like,
it's me.
So I know a guy who's he's about 6 foot. He's about 230 pounds, and
he's got a mean looking face.
I started losing my hair at like 18. Like that guy. Like, what about that guy?
Questionable if he can dribble, like Stanley from The Office. So there's one more piece, at least one more piece that Iowa State I think will add this week. I'm not going to announce it. But he's a really heady, good 3-point shooter. Doesn't shoot a ton of threes. Came from a smaller school, and then is leaving an ACC school that he's gonna be a good piece. He'll probably be a starter next to Taman next year.
So then, what is the
maybe not with Heisey? I don't know what Heisey's new.
So what is the theme and scheme gonna be?
So I think the theme next year will be team ball. I'm not sure. I think we'll see a lot of guys average like around 10 points. I don't know if we'll have anybody who's going to be like a Jiggy who's going to go off for 35 points. Who's going to
unless it's Milan.
Yeah, and that's a good and a bad thing. Who's going to be the guy? And I guess Milan could be this guy.
Or Josh.
Who's going to be the guy that you go to and you need a 3 at the buzzer? Probably Milan.
He kind of already is.
Right. So, but I don't know if we're going to have a Jiggy type of shooter in that. I mean, I felt like everything he shot, and he could shoot 11 threes a game. I'm not sure if we'll see anybody attempt more than like 6 threes next year, but I think we'll be a better rounded team and a more athletic team. Not to take away anything from the team this year. They were a step slow sometimes when they faced really athletic teams. I think that Buchanan is a nice piece because he's 6'11", like 250, 260-ish. So he's tall, got a little bit of girth to him, but he's not quite 280 like Deshaun was. And he's cut from the same mold as like a Hassan Ward or an Oshuni and those type of kind of tall, wiry-ish guys. I think we'll be pleasantly surprised with Buchanan. And any of you fans on Twitter bashing these guys, don't edit this out. Fuck off. Trust TJ. He has done a great job of building rosters. Trust the coach. And stats aren't everything. So if you got anything negative to say on Twitter behind a burner, just fuck all the way off.
Yeah, I would agree. That's why.
If you can't say something with your face and name behind it, don't be a coward.
And even if you do, like, what good does it do?
Right.
And
you really evaluate your life if you're doing that.
It feels like I've actually had conversations with people who have said horrible things, like through the internet, and then they like later run into you in person, and they say like, "Man, I was so pissed at that point. I'm sorry." Like afterwards.
At that point, step away.
Yeah.
Step away from the screen.
If that's the case and you're really worked up, there are other humans on the other side of the internet. It's not
who have feelings.
So it is. One of the reasons why TJ's here, why Campbell's here, why guys want to transfer here is the fan base, because the positive feelings that the fan base gives, and 99.999% of people are in that camp. But
I do think that some of these burners talking shit are Hawk fans posing as Cyclone fans, though.
But as the internet continues to just morph, as it always does, the negativity sticks out really well. So if you want to keep enjoying Iowa State athletics, don't be a dick. Yeah. And now, again, this is most people. This is speaking. People are like, yeah, I agree. But for the one other person, there are humans on the other side of that. And if you wouldn't stand in a room and say that to someone's face, then don't put it on the internet.
Yep.
General rule of thumb.
Yep. If you don't think I say, don't say anything at all. And I would just say, this is one thing that Chizik's wife actually suggested that I did this freshman year, was stay off social media during the season.
I just stay off social media altogether.
Yeah. I'm going to delete it here soon.
It's great.
It doesn't bring a whole lot.
You know what I'm every once in a while, someone will be like, oh, did you see some story about somebody? It's like, nope.
Yeah.
My life's not any different.
Yep.
Anyway,
that was a little bit of Grand Scripes, though.
That was Grand Scripes.
Ooh, it felt good to get off my chest.
The chest. I was going to make some type of transition, but just thank you to the Iowa pork producers.
Had some bacon this morning. My wife made a quiche. Delicious. Great bacon.
Terrific.
Thank you to the Iowa pork producers for all that they do, feeding our farmlands. And
were they feeding the farmlands?
Yes.
I
I read successful farmers. They are feeding the farmlands.
That's true. But they're feeding people via the farmlands. And you got to feed the farmlands to feed the animals, to feed the people. There's a lot to it.
Yeah.
I do before, because it's still sort of fresh. Hard transition. There is no, this is a straight up jump cut. I think the women's team for the same thing. So going into the year, they were top 10. And I think when we go fast forward 3 years and look back, what are you going to say? I think that the expectations were unnecessarily high and it feels a little sophomore slumpy.
Sure.
That to me feels like, and in some cases, literally.
Yes.
Because, Audie and Addie, great. But someone, like the Kelsey Jones and the Ariana Jackson had some up and down portions of the season because they're sophomores. And now, the reason why the sophomore slump exists, and even Addie and Audie had up and downs throughout the season. Emily Ryan was really never healthy throughout the entire year. There was up and downs. But the reason why a sophomore slump exists, every coach is a good coach at this level. There's just different degrees of there's great. And, there's the Dawn Staley's that is legendarily good, but even a bad coach at a Division I level is still a pretty damn good coach. And so when they have an entire year of film on you and they start to prep who they're trying to recruit, they're recruiting against their conference. What do you do well? What do you do poorly? And they have a whole year of film of, if you have a slight weakness that you can't dribble to your left side as much when there's pressure on it, they're going to force you to do that a lot.
Left, yeah.
And so they're going to find all the things that you don't do well. And whether that's by scheme, whether that's mentality, whether that's a physical attribute, and you then have to adjust to that adjustment. And the sophomore slump, air quotes, is that teams now can force you into the thing that you don't want to do and don't do very well. And usually then after that, you start to say, oh, this is what people want to take away. I'm going to work on that and then fix that mistake. So for me, the big question so first off, what are we going to think about? I think, like I said, sophomore slump type of season, but what are you going to see? What are the big questions is, can they fix the holes that they had, which to me were a consistent ball movement was number one thing for me with watching the women, because a lot of it was the joke of the Calvin Johnson, and you can duck this one, Aiden. No, f it, he's down there somewhere that's the Calvin Johnson offense is what they did with the women sometimes, where it's Addie and Audie are somewhere down there and just huck it into them and just let something else happen.
Let those two ISO on the right side and we'll just hang out over here.
And then the ball stuck and then maybe
got forced.
One of them got in foul trouble or one of them just was off that day or whatever. There's a really good defender on one of the two. And all of a sudden now no one else is involved in the offense. It's not as moving. And whether that's by scheme or by personality or whatever, that is a thing that's going to have to move, is how do you develop more ball movement so that when Audie does establish the post presence, they don't know where the ball is going to enter from. That it could come in from any side. It could come in from any point. Does the point guard, Emily's gone, so who's playing point? And then how does the rest of the ball move around? I think the biggest question is from a recruiting / transfer portal standpoint and a game flow and how they execute it is, how do you get more ball movement in the offense so that it doesn't get sticky? Because when Audie and Addie are on, they can beat anybody. There's nobody in the country they can't just beat because very few people, if any, can stop both of them. But if you can get one of them slowed down and no one else is contributing, Addie can score 40 and Audie can score 20 and still lose 80 to 60. Like that's the thing that to me is the big question for this offseason.
So I saw that Audie and Addie both announced they're coming back. I don't know if you know this, Jeff. Aiden, do you know, have any girls announced they've entered the transfer portal from Iowa State?
Not to my knowledge.
I didn't think so. Okay, so I need to remind you something, Jeff. You said who's going to be the point guard? Kenzie Hare. She got hurt last year, transfer from Marquette.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, her and Emily were supposed to split time point guard, but obviously she got hurt. She averaged basically 11 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists at Marquette. And she shot,
it's 42 or 44%, something like that.
42% from 3. So, and she averaged, she averaged three threes a game. So with AJ, Kelsey Jones, Audie, Addie, and then I'm not sure if the other girls, if
Eiley Tanky, she's
Eiley Tanky was a true freshman.
Yeah. And she'll only get better.
Kenzie Hare back. I don't know if any of the other girls are Emily Ryan was only senior.
Mm-hmm.
She was only senior. So unless anybody,
there's still a super young roster.
Yeah. So that, and there's also, they have a girl coming from Arizona who's a transfer who is visiting, who'd be a really nice addition. She's also looking at Iowa. She'd be a really nice addition. She'd be a point guard too. She's a smaller girl, but if we could get her and then Kenzie Hare could play,
and AJ can play
off guard,
and AJ can sort of do the Keyshawn where every once in a while you need the ball control because whoever the point guard is needs a break.
Yep,
go for it.
So there's the girl from Arizona, and there's another girl too from a smaller school that's she was a scorer. So if Iowa State, the women can land either one of them, I think they'll be in a really great position. The thing for me though, like you kind of said, that the ball, it almost looked like it was like a forced ball sometimes, where it'd go into Audie. And I mean, sometimes it works, but sometimes, and I think this is one thing that maybe Audie needs to work on her game sometimes in the offseason, is if it's not there, don't force it. I get it. She's stronger than a lot of her competition.
Pretty much everybody.
Yeah. But if a double team is coming or someone is leaving their girl, dish it out. This team is talented enough that really anybody on the team can knock down a 3. And I mentioned it, before that the team was structured for that reason. I'd said at the beginning of the year, it was structured to dump it down to Audie, double team, boop, dip it out, knock it down.
I think another thing, and this is non-basketball playing guy, I think both teams, and when the Iowa State men were really good, offensive rebounding was an absolute strength. Mm-hmm. There were times though when it wasn't. And when you're not getting in the paint and you're not getting offensive rebounds, then it's really hard to score because they didn't have, other than Jiggy, when they didn't have Curtis Jones shooting like lights out, there wasn't as much offense. And again, sometimes you can rely on offensive rebounding. The women, I don't think offensive rebounded as well as they needed to, because you have someone like Audie who's going to draw a double team all the time. Even and once the ball's up, then that defender is trying to contest the ball. They're not trying to block her out. They're not trying to block somebody else out. Who can knife in? And Addie usually did that. But is there someone else that can be an offensive rebounder that you can get second shots, that you can put teams in scramble where ball gets into Audie on the block, there's a double team that comes, even if she shoots it or she kicks it, ball goes up. Now you have 2-on-1. They're trying to scramble. They're finding someone and everything becomes chaos. That's when you can start, like when you watch Houston men, the Houston men's basketball team is maybe the best offensive rebounding team I've ever seen. And I'm not a lifelong basketball fan, but I've not seen a team that gets more 50-50 balls and gets more offensive rebounds. And when you're trying to scramble that for like a tip ball and someone gets tip and then Tugler comes down with the rebound 14 feet away from the basket, but there's 3 dudes around him trying to get the ball. Well, if there's 3 dudes around trying to get the rebound and you get it, get that sumbitch across the floor, and all of a sudden LJ Cryer's open for a wide open 3. Like that's the type of stuff that I think this roster for the men and the women is, if offensive rebound and can stay as good as it was for the men or potentially get better, and for the women just get up to a level that I think it can be, then that feels like where you can start to have those, even when you're cold, you're hot style offenses.
And I wonder too who the women will bring in, because they have Sydney Harris and Alyssa Williams, who were more forward type girls. And I wonder if they're going to bring in, try to bring in someone who, like when they brought in Stephanie Suarez, who's 6'5", they're trying to bring in like a taller girl like that from a smaller school who could, who could give Audie some breaks sometimes. Who also, if they want both of them in at a time, that'd be a problem.
That's like Michigan.
Yeah.
Like Michigan had 2 7-foot, and Michigan men had 2 7-footers.
Why don't you go find a 7-footer?
Yeah, just find a 7-foot women's basketball player. What the hell, man?
Yeah.
Find him.
They probably got him.
I think we'll finish though with football. I don't think we're going to get to wrestling, and I don't think there's enough yet to know because wrestling is such a who are the dudes you got in the lineup, and
this year is decimated by injuries.
And transfers are going to be all over the place. Who's coming back? Like that's still way up in the air. It's less about like cohesion. It's like, do you have Younger Bastida? Is he in the lineup or not? Like yes or no?
I know you're not a social media guy, but there was some shade thrown from the Iowa State guys to the guys who went to the portal. Basically, like either do the work or get out of here. And
right,
if you're not going to do the work, see ya.
But with the football team, we've already had a lot of the specifics on it. But now that there's a little bit more space, in the 3 years from now, we look back on this team. What are we thinking just to keep the theme from the other two teams?
I think that it was. I think looking while we were in the season, they lost a couple games. It was like, we shouldn't have lost that. I think in the moment fans were frustrated. Looking back right now, it's like 11 wins. I
had 10-2 in the regular season, 11-3 overall.
Like lost.
You played 14 games.
Yeah, obviously lost in the championship game, and got exposed a little bit. But you saw it got exposed because they didn't have any linebackers, and like you said, these coaches are smart. They see film and they learn. I'm really proud of how the team bounced back. I think it was a very successful year. I think it's something to take motivation from. I saw that Mauser has some of the confetti from the Big 12 championship game that he keeps on his desk and looks at it every day to remind him.
That's
so
nice.
You can have those chips on your shoulders. I think the team came back hungry. They beat a blue blood, in Miami. Obviously, I know that Cam Ward only played the first half, maybe the number one pick in the draft. That's got to give some confidence going forward. And obviously, they had Xavier Restrepo, who wasn't playing as well. But I think that this year's team has a lot to build on. Obviously, we're gonna miss Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll, a couple dogs, and the guys in the back end, Freeler and Verdon, and Porter and Purchase. But I think there's some young guys that we'll see that played pretty well this year. I think Marcus Neal will be the next dude. He played this year as a true freshman and was a stud. There's a couple of younger cornerbacks that I think they really like, and I'm blanking on
Surges and Crawford.
Crawford.
Tashawn Crawford?
Oh yeah, no, James. Deshaun
James. Sorry,
yeah.
Deshaun James.
It's like, that was Crawford. But also Benny Nagoya switched from receiver to cornerback, who is just
Darian Porter.
Yeah, I mean he had. Oh my God, and they find these guys, Darren Porter, TJ Tampa, just like you're a freak. Go play corner.
Yeah,
Benny almost had a nasty catch the first or second game of the year. Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. Jumping back, I was like, okay, this guy's gonna be a freak. So I think he could be, obviously I don't know anything if he's going to be good or not, but he has the capabilities to be really good. But I think looking back on the season, to answer your question, I think it was all in all a successful year that they're battling injuries for a lot of the year. Abu Sama was not healthy until about midway, and even then I don't think he was completely healthy. Carson Hansen wasn't healthy all year. Rocco was dealing with something for a few of the games. And then obviously the linebackers, 15 of those guys died, so we had to bring in a guy from the stands. So no disrespect to Ron Barnes, he did great. But I think looking back on this year, we're going to think that the team could have achieved more because they were so successful and they had really talented receivers who won't be there this next year. Brought in a couple nice pieces, and I hear that the receivers are looking really good. I'm also hearing the true freshmen, the guys who were high school guys who graduated early, do not look like freshmen, that they're stepping up and they're being leaders and they're looking pretty good so far. But I think looking back on this year, long-winded answer, I think it's going to be successful. Looking back, it's going to be a successful year.
I think I'm going to use a golf analogy. So March golf is always, for those that are avid golfers, March golf is always like pretty hit or miss, where
it was tough golfing the day when it was snowing. I couldn't find my ball.
Where like the touch stuff, you haven't golfed outside. So even if you've been in a simulator, like you don't know what it's like to have a bad lie. And then when the creek is on the right physically and there's water over there, it's way different than like digital. So like March golf is always pretty hit or miss. And I went out in the last couple weeks when it was nice, and I shot a 92 on one of the days and an 86 on one of the days.
Saw that. I get my alerts, 18 birdies.
Yeah, thank you. But I was disappointed with an 86. And that, like in the moment, because there's a couple fat shots and thin shots you got to recover from, and a good tee shot that you thin one over the green and now you got to recover from it, whatever, like all that kind of stuff. And I was disappointed with an 86. And that to me feels like the football team in that. An 86 is still pretty freaking good. Sure. So when you get some space away from that round, where you're like, I was mad that I had that fat shot or that thin shot, and you get all pissed about it, and then you got to forget about it and move on to the next thing. And when you finish, you're like, God, I left a lot of them out there. And you go, still an 86. That's pretty cool. It feels to me like the football team is kind of that, but a better version. You're like somebody who's a better golfer. And I'm not, 86 is good, but Rory shooting 62 or whatever it is. With this team, they played well. And now that there's some space, 10-2 in the regular season, make it to the Big 12 championship on, like you said, like 4 functioning shoulders in the linebacker room, 2 functioning knees, and you lose in that game pretty embarrassingly. And so it feels like, another golf example, that's your like quadruple bogey. You plunked it in the water twice, but it's still just one hole. Now, what do you do the next one? And then they won the game against Miami, which still feels better. They're going to start the season probably top 15 or top 20 at the worst.
We also forgot Ben Bramer is hurt too from
right. And so you have you feel bad in the moment, but then you come back and you look at it, you're like 10-2 is pretty freaking good.
Exactly.
And it feels like that to me is the way that I've looked at this team. And now the questions that I have going forward is sort of on the offensive side. I feel like they've got in the transfer portal and guys like Alston and the Sewell. How do you pronounce it?
I think it's so well. I think it's so well. I don't know if you know different.
Anyway, and then Daniel Jackson getting healthier.
I love D-Jack. I forgot about him.
So I think the wide receiver room is going to be really strong with Burkle playing as well as he did towards the end of last year, and Bramer getting healthy, and Tyler Moore is going to move over to be the fullback position.
And a guy named Cooper Alexander, who was a true freshman last year, who is supposed to be good.
So I feel like the offensive line is going to be good. They return most of those guys outside of Jalen Travis, which hard loss, and Hofford. So you lose those 2 guys. But everybody else is back. You have a lot of experience. There's a lot of depth. There's a lot of talent. There's more reps. Rocco's back, which for sure is a top 2 or 3 quarterback in the league, top 10 maybe across the country. The question mark that I have on the offensive side is how can you establish a consistent running game?
Yep.
And if you can establish a consistent running game, this team is unstoppable. If you can't, this team is very stoppable, because when you can't run the ball and you force Rocco into being a pass first, chuck it down the field quarterback, you look at Brock Purdy. There's always the natural comparison between Rocco and Brock because they are the same height, same school, very similar game style. Brock had Breece Hall. Like when he was learning and getting comfortable, he had Breece Hall. He could still do it when he needed to. Then he goes to the 49ers, and now they have Christian McCaffrey, but they also have that run game scheme. So he's able to flourish because that's the game that he needs to play. Rocco's very similar. Everything's going to be predicated on the fact that if Iowa State can run the ball, they will be a impossible to stop team.
And Mauser had commented in one of his pressers that the running back room is the most talented. He thinks it may be the most talented position group on the team. I mean, obviously you got Sama, who's been dinged up, who had some flashes true freshman year, some flashes last year. Carson Hansen's good. Dylan Lee, who was a true freshman last year.
He redshirted, yeah.
Yep. A guy named River Peppers, who is on
River Peppers?
Yep.
Oh my God. That's an all-name team.
Who's on
River Peppers?
Who's on he's a high school kid who graduated early, and then they got a late commitment from a guy named Jaden Jackson, who he's from Texas.
Jalen Jackson?
Jaden. Yep. So out with Jalen, in with Jaden. He ran for more than 2,400 yards in 2023. So he's a big bruiser, kind of built like a Cartavis Norton, if you will. But I think he could be kind of the Jeff Woody role of just smash mouth, boom, in your face football.
I would say though, the difference between talent and production, every running back room is talented.
Sure.
It's, can you get production out of it?
Absolutely.
And that's, you have the ability to break every tackle, but can you get to the gap at the right time? And like, to me, that is the mesh between the offensive line and the running backs. Can they establish a consistent running game? And to me, that's, if they can, like I said, this team is unstoppable on offense. I don't know if there's anything more on the offense. Go ahead.
You have to remember that Tyler Roll left to go to the Lions too.
Yeah.
So they have a new running back coach,
which is they got rid of North Dakota State offensive coordinator, came over to be the running backs coach at Iowa State. That guy then went to be the running backs coach, or like an offensive assistant with the Lions. So what did they do? They went and got the offensive coordinator at North Dakota State to be the running backs coach at Iowa State.
Yep, Jake Landry.
If it ain't broke, they just got the same guy. They basically replaced him.
Jake Landry. So I don't know his style or anything, but yeah,
it's more on Mouse and
exactly.
And that to me is like, can you get a running game? And defensively, I feel like the offense, this is the kind of the inverse of last year. I'm more sure of the offense than I am of the defense, not in a way that the defense is going to be bad. It's just in the defense of what's it going to look like. Because in the past, they switched to the 3-3-5 because they didn't have enough defensive linemen to be consistently great. And they had a ton of really good secondary players. Well, how do you solve both of those problems? Take one defensive lineman out, bring in an extra defensive back, and now you have minimized your depth problem and maximized your talent problem. So they did that because that was where the roster was. I don't know enough about this roster relative to everybody else, but what I can say is that probably the deepest and strongest position on the defense is the linebacker unit. They've got a bajillion linebackers who are now strong, successful, and experienced because of all those injuries. You got Caleb Bacon, you got Brzezina, you have Sadowski, you've got so many guys, Cooper Ebel, that have played, Carson Willick, that have played and that played really well, that it can play at an all Big 12, potentially all American level. Do you have more linebackers on the field this year in something like a 3-4, or you have a guy, maybe, I don't know, fill in the blank, athletic linebackers on the field and plays sort of the Bo Freeler role, but doesn't cut, do they mix up what the defense looks like to maximize the personnel that they have? Or do they rotate more? Like, to me, the big question is, what shape does the defense take relative to the personnel that's on the field?
This roster is going to be interesting too, because they need to cut down to, I think, 105 guys. So they're like 100 and probably 120, 125 guys right now. So I'm curious to see who the, 15
casualties are.
Yeah. I've heard some rumblings, but I'm not going to speculate at all. So,
but I think it is an interesting question to have. Can they get a running game established? And what shape does the defense take? Because I do think when you look at the Big 12 again, wide open.
Yep.
Same as last year.
Yeah,
you lose a guy like Scadaboo, but you keep Kenny Dillingham's.
Their quarterback's the best quarterback in the
Levitt's really good.
Too.
I mean, Rocco and Levitt are probably your two best.
Yeah.
And the kid that transferred to Utah is probably
Cam Rising.
Nope. Is he gone? Is he still there?
Fuck if I know. Owen Wilson's back though. No, he left.
Wow.
Where'd Owen Wilson end up? Do we know?
No. But there's going to be a bunch of players. But
BYU came on. I mean, they came on strong too.
Right. And like Sataki is going to be able to coach. Like Arizona State's going to be good. Iowa State's going to be good. Kansas State's always going to be good because Kleiman is a really good coach. Like you can hate on as much as you want.
Arizona will be better too. I mean,
you'd assume that they would be better. Like
they lost McMillan.
They lose Tetsuroa McMillan, and he's really freaking good.
But that coach is also, that was his first or second year. So like,
I think first year.
Yeah, so you should get better.
There's going to be teams that improve. Oklahoma State's not going to be that bad for that long. Like these teams are going to be better, but it's all wide open. So to me, it is
Cincinnati could be better too with second year in Tyson Veit.
They're going. How do you execute in the running game, and what shape does the defense take is going to me dictate what the outcome of the season is. And those are to me the questions that I have for this offseason is those mainly those two.
Yeah, and I don't know if we'll get any answers until probably August.
Don't you know? Yes. Once we're playing over in Ireland.
I know no one cares about my fantasy league, but I think we're going to do a fancy draft that weekend. So it'll be kind of cool.
In Ireland.
In Ireland, yes.
Going to do your fantasy draft in Ireland from a pub.
Yeah, frick. I got to tell our commissioner I can't do it. Then I'm going to be in Ireland.
You're going to be in a pub.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be sweet though.
Having a pint in a pub.
I just call
That'd be
in. Call in. Oh, no. That was going to say Aussie. That's not. No.
Totally different portion of the world.
Shoot. Cut that out, Aiden, please.
Nope. Leave it in.
All right. Did I get anything else?
Nope.
I don't either. Fun episode. That's all I've got, though. Thank you to all of our loyal listeners. As always, I'm Grant Mahoney. That's Jeff Woody. Aiden White's behind the boards. And remember, adapt. Please don't shop.